It is difficult to understand the realities of discrimination when you are not experiencing them firsthand, and you do not need to feel guilty because of this. You are not the reason that there is a system of oppression in place. However, you can use your societal advantage to help lift up and empower. Hello, I am Noah Takes the World. I came out in the beginning of this year and I want to use my platform to educate and encourage empathy on LGBTQIA+ issues. So sit back, open your mind, and subscribe. If you watched my last video, I talked about LGBTQ terminology. And if you missed that, just click up here to watch that. If you saw that video, I spoke about allies and how allies are people who are not LGBTQ, but they use their privilege to voice and empower LGBTQ individuals. They help support and promote equality. However, being an ally does not just apply to the LGBTQ community. An ally is someone who has privilege but chooses to stand up for and with marginalized communities by taking tangible, ongoing actions to dismantle systems of oppression. Marginalized communities are those who are targeted by oppression, including but not limited to people of color, Muslims, immigrants, refugees, LGBTQ people, women, and people with disabilities. But for this video, I'm going to specifically reference how to be a good ally within the LGBTQ community. However, some of what I say can be applied to other marginalized communities. Remember, you do not need to feel ashamed of your ally status. As a white, cisgender, gay male, I understand that I have a lot more privilege than a lot of people in my community. This is the third episode of my education and empathy series, and if you can hear in the background, there is a little rain going down, and I was like, should I film? People are going to be able to hear the rain. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to ruin my aesthetic, my vibe. So if you hear little rippy drippities, I'm sorry. I had to film. The show must go on. Honestly, I bet the rain will be kind of like set a good vibe for this tone. I don't know, but anyway. As a white, cisgender, gay male, I realize I have more privilege than most of my community. My coming out nearly garnered a positive reaction, and I say nearly because we'll just leave it at that. But anyway, I was so lucky. I got so many comments, so many likes, so many happy messages. I wasn't kicked out of my home. I did not face threats or harassment. And I definitely cannot say the same for many people who came out before me and many people who still come out. And especially people who come out in countries where, homosexuality is very taboo and it's even illegal. Very disheartening that this stuff is happening. So I just want to make everyone know I do have a lot of privilege. And it breaks my heart that the world is like this. And that's why I'm sitting in front of my camera while it's raining outside to tell you this. I really like this quote from Brooklyn-based licensed therapist Amelia Yankee, who works with members of the LGBTQ community who are suffering from trauma. Recognize that you are not responsible for building the system, but you are responsible for what you do with that knowledge, how you move on from there, and what you do with your privilege. How can you use your privilege to do good? How can you be a good ally? Here are 5 ways. And I will put in the description box all of the resources that I used to make this video. I pulled from the most random sites. There's this really cool infographic from a YMCA, and there was Oprah magazine, and I used a lot of different resources to really make the best succinct list. Number 1, listen. Listen to what marginalized people are saying, face to face, on your social media feed, or in the articles you read. It's not about you and your opinions, it is about listening and hearing their voice. Are you aware that the coming out process is not a one-time event? The coming out process is unique to gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people, and it brings challenges that are not readily understood. Remember that LGBTQIA people are a diverse group. Each community within the larger LGBTQ community has unique challenges and goals. Work to develop an understanding of sexual orientation and the challenges facing lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans individuals daily. Listening opens the door to true advocacy and understanding. It means the world when people say they watch my coming out videos, or when they really listen attentively when I discuss these very personal matters. Listening is so easy, yet we often focus more on our tasks and our to-dos and really forget to listen with our hearts and minds. Number 2, get educated. Seek out books, articles, films, and about the history and current issues facing marginalized communities. Do some research online and shift some of the emotional burden off the people in your life who have another identity that you're privileged in relation to. This means sometimes it can be a lot for close LGBTQI person in your circle to constantly educate and explain when questions arise. However, many people are willing to answer those questions. Just ask them from a place of love and respect. Check yourself to ensure they are not offensive or cumbersome. If you're having trouble understanding certain topics like the importance of using gender pronouns, find resources that will help you navigate those concepts. And just recognize that just because someone is gay or trans, that doesn't mean they know everything about a topic. And after researching, I thought this tip was particularly impactful. Know at least the basic information about AIDS in order to address myths and misinformation and to be supportive of those affected by this disease, whether in themselves or in partners and friends. While AIDS/HIV is a health issue for all, those who live with the most fear and have the most members of their community lost to it are gay, lesbian, and bisexual and transgender persons. In the future, I hope to talk about this topic because it's such an important /pivotal not talked about enough part of queer history, and I'm learning about this stuff and I'm like, why didn't I hear about this in school? Understand that gay, lesbian, and bisexual people receive the same message about homosexuality, bisexuality, and the trans identities as everyone else. Thus, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people deal with internalized homophobia, heterosexism, and transphobia. It's important to recognize the risks of coming out. And if some of these terms are new to you, like internalized homophobia, that's okay. Just understand that it is sometimes hard for people who are LGBTQ to accept themselves because they live in a society where it's not seen as normal. Just recognize that many LGBT people struggle with a lot of internal conflict regarding their sexuality or gender expression. They may have shame, guilt, fear, you name it, the whole 9 yards. A lot of times people forget that coming out to yourself when you finally realize that you are gay, and just that ongoing process of like letting yourself be okay with being seen as different. So remember to watch films, YouTube videos, interviews, listen to podcasts, music, and media. It's fine. You know, the more exposure you have to LGBTQIA plus voices will help you become an advocate and a light to an LGBTQ person. Number 3, welcome discomfort. When you encounter something that is uncomfortable, don't dismiss it. Sit with it. Sit with it and ask yourself why, and welcome it as an opportunity for growth. It's possible that you'll make mistakes when getting better acquainted with the LGBTQIA+ community, and that is okay. Allyship is actually more about the mistakes than the things that you do right. It is about how you deal with those mistakes and move forward, says human rights advocate Maybe Burke. Let people know that from the start you are open to guidance and feedback. The more you open up, the more you'll be able to listen and learn effectively. What's been really interesting with coming out is a lot of people actually came to me and I didn't even know them, or I barely even knew them, and they were like, I'm so sorry for what I did to my friend or this person, or I didn't speak up in this instant when someone is being bullied. I really appreciate that they're feeling remorse and coming to me. But you don't have to, go into your past and like find those moments when you're embarrassed and you didn't speak up, because we've all made those mistakes. We all have not spoken up. I'm not saying that we can excuse our past, because we can't, but we don't need to be so hard on ourselves, because I feel like the more we dwell on like our mistakes, the less we are looking forward and being in the present moment where we can really make a great impact. Like if you watch my coming out videos, I was the most homophobic person on the planet. So if you are really homophobic, you got something to say, like, are you hiding something? So in general, expect to make some mistakes, but that does not mean you can just shrug them off and use that as an excuse for inaction. Number 4, get involved. Join local groups working for social justice. Subscribe to their emails, follow them on social media, and show up to support their work. Take your online activism into real-life scenarios. Social media is a wonderful tool for building community, educating others, and uniting marginalized groups without support systems. But it also makes it easy for allies to speak on behalf of the LGBT community despite not having the same struggles. To prevent that from happening, I'm going to quote Burke, who I also quoted earlier. Decenter yourself from the work. Use your platforms to speak about issues, but also amplify the voices of those less heard. then be sure to get involved and actively show your support. Find local organizations to volunteer your time with and to donate to. It might be really difficult to get involved, and I get that. We are busy and have our own lives. Focus on trying to build a sense of community with LGBTQ people, and that doesn't have to be something that's super organized or super planned out. It doesn't have to be a grand event or a big thing. Just make it part of your everyday life. Number 5, speak up. When a friend, family member, coworker, or stranger says something hateful or ignorant, call them out. Silence allows oppression to continue. When someone is being targeted physically or verbally, intervene only with their permission. Focus on supporting them rather than engaging with the aggressor. The best way to encourage allyship is to start a conversation. If you hear or see something that is damaging towards the LGBT community, gently point out the problem and use it as a teachable moment. There is a point in advocacy where you need the people who hold the privilege to start the conversation, because otherwise the marginalized communities don't get heard. And that was a quote from Burke, who I have already used quotes from a ton, but they are an amazing source, and I'll put their social media in the description box if you want to follow them. So speak up, promote diversity in the workplace, update your email signature to include your pronouns, correct people if they misgender someone, even if that someone isn't in the room. Speak up when a person uses a slur and insensitive and racially charged language. Show your support by wearing a pride pin or a pride flag or a shirt or Speaking up can be frightening and intimidating, but do not fear showing love and respect towards people, because that is essentially all you're doing when you speak up. And that comes to a close of the 5 ways to be a good ally. Dare I say great ally. This video is so important because we need good allies. We need people who are ready to listen and love individuals who disproportionately experience stress, anxiety, and discrimination. 1 in 4 transgender people have lost a job due to a bias, according to the National Center for Transgender Equality, and more than 3/4 have experienced some form of workplace discrimination. That is just one statistic. I could share a million others, and the message really doesn't change. LGBTQ individuals need straight and cisgender allies who are educated and ready to fight against discrimination. Are you ready to fight on the front lines? Because I am, and I know so many more of you are too. I hope this discourse offered you new insight and provoked new thinking. Let's continue to educate with empathy. I'm Noah Takes the World. I will see you on the next Education Empathy episode. Let's change the world, guys. Let's change the world.